I'm here on this beautiful Regulator 28-foot with twin Yamaha F300s and Yamaha's Helm EX full maneuverability system. I'm going to take a few minutes and just walk you through some of the benefits of this system because there's a lot to it and I'm obviously not going to cover them all, just really some of the high points of it. Starting with the DEC remote, or digital electronic control, we now have trim assist, which was part of the original Helm, but it's been greatly improved because now not only can it work in an RPM mode, but it can also be set for GPS speed. So that becomes a lot more usable because it no longer will trim the motors based on RPM, but actually the boat's attitude and running angle in the water. So if I want the motors to be trimmed at 40%, say 32 miles an hour, I can set that up, and sure enough, it doesn't matter how much RPM it takes me to get there based on the weight of the boat, it depends on the actual speed of the boat itself. That way the motors won't accidentally trim too high when I'm still not going my target speed. Now, also part of the DEC remote is speed control, and this is a huge benefit because it not only can be based in RPM or speed based, but it gives you a lot of control over the speed of your boat, especially at slower trolling speeds. So if we put this into gear, we're going to press down on the speed control button to activate it. I now have 10 steps up or down, and in this case we have the boat set up in speed based. So if I want to go 1.25 miles per hour, the boat's going to automatically start bump shifting itself to try to get me to that target speed. And as you can see, it's now shifted into neutral. Our current speed is 2 miles an hour. And once again, it goes back into neutral, and it's going to give us little short bursts of power and slowly let us get down to that speed based on the conditions. If I want to go faster, obviously I can press the button up. If I want to go slower, I can press the button down. One nice thing about speed control, it also works while I'm in reverse. So that means you can use it to back troll in certain conditions. Now, you also have adjustable detent and friction for the levers for a customer that may want a firmer lever feel than the standard DEC feel. And you have, of course, your trim all and your individual trim buttons. Now, something else that's built in here is neutral hold. And this is just a good thing to point out to your customers, just from a standpoint of just being safe while they're out on the water. If they're not actively at the helm and in control of their boat, such as when they're tied up at a dock and they happen to have their motors running, letting them warm up in the morning, press neutral hold. That way, if when they're loading the boat, or if there's kids around, or anything else that possibly could happen, a fishing pole, if you accidentally bump the levers, it's going to keep them locked into neutral. And of course, if you need a little extra charging power, you can use that to rev your motors up to recharge your batteries while you're out in the water. To deactivate it, simply put it back into neutral, press neutral hold to deactivate it, and once again you have full control over the motor. Now, moving on to the digital electric steering, or DES. This is integrated on the F250 and F300 and the XTO, and it also works with the bolt-on version that works with the F150 all the way up to the 300. The biggest benefit of this is the variable lock-to-lock steering. Now, traditional hydraulic steering, you're looking at 7 to 8 turns. That can get kind of tiring when you're out in the water, not to mention how slow. 4 turns lock-to-lock. Now, as this boat increases in speed, that lock-to-lock is going to change, and I can get it all the way to 9 turns lock-to-lock. So at slow speeds, I can have a very fast wheel, such as maneuvering around in a marina, and then once I'm out underway and I'm under speed, I can get this to go up to 6 or 7 turns, so I still have a nice comfortable wheel that I can control easily. Additionally, I have adjustable steering friction, regular or heavy settings. So if the conditions are getting a little choppy and it's getting a little bouncy, I can actually turn on the heavy setting, which is going to give me a much firmer wheel and give me the ability to do a better job of hanging onto it without changing the control of the boat. Now, when we come over to the autopilot panel and the MFDs, we got heading hold, course hold, track point, and pattern steer. Heading hold is going to hold my boat's heading. Course hold is going to establish a course and maintain that course. The boat will change its heading to maintain that depending on conditions. And then track point, and that's your traditional autopilot setting. So if I go here into my MFD and I set an endpoint and I'm going to hit auto guidance and we're going to start my navigation, I'm going to put it into gear and we're going to spin ourselves around here to get us facing the right direction. Then once I'm actually up underway, I can press track point and I can actually let the boat steer me there. Now, we have something that's really a neat feature that's part of this, and it's called waypoint arrival. So that as I start to approach my final waypoint, I can have it automatically go into one of my set point modes. It's going to naturally start to decelerate as we start to approach that final waypoint. Once we get to that final waypoint, it's going to shift itself into neutral and tell me to return the throttles to the neutral position, at which point then it will engage that pre-selected set point mode. Really, really a handy feature. Now, pattern steer, if I want to use pattern steer, I can do a zigzag or I can do a actual spiral system. Great for trolling or actually doing searches if you want, like looking for fish on the bottom, new fishing spots, things like that. Now, when we start talking about the joystick and the set point modes, it's all about boat control. And if you think about this as controlling rudder angle and my throttle's controlling thrust, my joystick controls boat movement. So if we activate joystick, I now have 5 different power levels. I can control that with the plus or the minus, and I can do that on the fly and changing them up or down as I need to. Now, as I start to move the boat, think of the joystick with the front of the joystick being the bow of the boat and the rear of the joystick being the stern of the boat. If I need to pivot the boat, obviously I can twist it, allow it to pivot the boat. If I need to steer the boat backwards, I can actually go backwards, and then I can actually steer the boat as I need to. And remember, when you're using the joystick, it's not about being aggressive. That's one of the nice things about the joystick, is the finesse you can have with the boat compared to the throttle and the wheel. Now remember, throttle angle and thrust, boat movement. So where do I want the boat to go and how do I want it to move? Don't overpower the boat using the joystick. Small, slight movements are going to do a much better job of getting the boat where you want it without getting yourself into too much of a commotion. Now, using the set point features such as fish point, which will keep the boat's position but not its heading, I can set that for bow or stern. Drift point, which will actually hold the boat's heading but not its position, so I can drift naturally along a shoreline. And then stay point, which will hold both the position and the heading. All great modes, all have a lot of different things. And in addition, drift point now has what's called drift point track, where I can actually set my heading, I can drift, but then I can use low power fore and aft movement to pull the boat forward and aft along my drift. All these features make out a huge suite of things that a fisherman can use to do whatever they need to do to get their target fish.